My name is Grandma Investor. I've spent decades watching money move, watching people do the right things, and watching systems quietly take advantage of them. I'm not here to scare you. I'm not here to sell you anything. And I'm definitely not here to tell you that you messed up. Most of the people who get hurt financially didn't make bad choices. They made reasonable ones. That's the part nobody likes to talk about. Let me tell you about Jennifer. And listen carefully, because this matters. Jennifer wasn't careless. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't financially clueless. She was a financial planner, the kind of person people pay to help them feel safe about money. She had a 6-month emergency fund. She maxed out her 401. She drove a paid-off car. She had employer-provided health insurance. She did the math. She believed she was protected. And that belief is exactly where this story begins to matter for you. Jennifer didn't just hope things would work out. She planned for the worst. She looked at her health insurance the way responsible people are told to. Monthly premium? About $150. Deductible? $2,000. Out-of-pocket maximum? $8,000. She ran the numbers. Worst-case scenario, she told herself. She'd pay $8,000 in a year. That would hurt, sure, but it wouldn't ruin her. She had savings, she had discipline, she had margin. And here's the uncomfortable truth I want you to sit with for a second. That math makes sense. It's the same math financial advisors explain every day. It's the logic behind why people choose one plan over another. It's why we believe health insurance creates financial protection. You pay your premiums, you accept some risk, and there's a ceiling, a cap. A line the damage can't cross. That belief is what keeps the middle class calm. It's what allows people to sleep at night thinking their finances are stable. And it's exactly the belief this system quietly depends on. 18 months later, Jennifer had paid $37,000 out of her own pocket. Not her insurance company. Her. And before I explain how that happened, I want you to notice something important. Nothing about Jennifer's illness was exotic or rare. Stage 2 breast cancer, caught relatively early. Treatable. The kind of diagnosis people assume insurance is designed to handle, but that $8,000 worst case she planned for? It never stood a chance. $8,000 the first year, $8,000 the second year. Because treatment didn't respect the calendar. Illness doesn't pause for January 1st. And the system doesn't care that it feels like one continuous event to the person living through it. That single number didn't break her finances. What broke them was everything hiding behind it. By month 4, Jennifer's emergency fund was gone. Not because she panicked, because the bills didn't wait. By month 6, she stopped contributing to her 401. Not because she stopped believing in the future, but because the present was demanding cash. By month 12, she had $11,000 on credit cards, quietly converting medical stress into high-interest debt. And by month 14, she did the thing every responsible saver swears they'll never do. She took a hardship withdrawal from her retirement account, a 10% penalty, plus taxes. On money she had spent 20 years building. I want you to notice the pattern. There was no single bad decision. There was a sequence of forced decisions, each one reasonable on its own, each one made under pressure, each one shrinking her margin just a little more. This is how financial collapse actually happens, not in one dramatic moment, but in a series of compromises that feel temporary until they aren't. Jennifer survived the cancer. She didn't survive it financially. When I look at Jennifer's story, I don't see bad luck. I see a system doing exactly what it was designed to do. That's why I call this the medical roulette trap. Because every single person listening to me right now is spinning that wheel, whether they realize it or not. You pay your premiums. You follow the rules. You assume the odds are in your favor. And most of the time, nothing happens. That's what keeps the illusion alive. But roulette doesn't care how careful you are. It only cares that you keep playing. And when the ball finally lands on your number, the house doesn't bend the rules. It collects. Calmly. Legally, predictably, and the most dangerous part? You don't even see the trap until you're already inside it. Here's the first trick, and it's the one almost everyone misunderstands. Your plan has an out-of-pocket maximum, $8,000. Sounds like a hard stop, a ceiling, something solid you can plan around. But that ceiling resets every January 1st, quietly, automatically, no warning label, no reminder call. So if you're diagnosed in October and treatment stretches into the new year, you don't pay $8,000 once. You pay it twice. $8,000 in year 1, $8,000 in year 2, for what feels like a single, uninterrupted medical crisis. And if your condition becomes chronic, that maximum turns into an annual toll. $8,000 a year. 10 years, $80,000. 20 years, $160,000. That's not insurance. That's a subscription to risk. A road you're forced to stay on, paying every mile, with no exit ramp in sight. And this is only the first mechanism. The second mechanism is quieter, and in many ways, more brutal. Claim denial. Insurance companies deny claims constantly, not occasionally, constantly. And here's what most people don't understand until they're living it. Denial isn't about being right. It's about wearing you down. You get a letter saying a procedure wasn't medically necessary, even though your oncologist ordered it. You're sick. You're scared. You're buried in paperwork. And now you're expected to fight a corporation with lawyers, algorithms, and time on its side. Most people don't appeal, not because they agree with the denial, but because they're exhausted. And the system is counting on that exhaustion. Every bill you quietly pay instead of challenging is pure profit. The insurance company doesn't need to beat you in court. It just needs you too tired to push back. Thousands of dollars disappear that way. Not stolen, surrendered, and by the time you realize what's happening, the damage is already done. The third mechanism is the one that feels the most unfair, because it strips you of choice entirely. You pick an in-network hospital. You confirm your surgeon is in-network. You do everything right. And then, while you're unconscious on the operating table, the anesthesiologist is out of network. The radiologist who reads your scan? Out of network. The lab that processes your blood work? Out of network. Doctors you never chose. Bills you never agreed to. Prices your insurance refuses to negotiate. And here's the part people miss. Those charges often don't count toward your out-of-pocket maximum. They sit outside the ceiling you thought protected you. The No Surprises Act was supposed to fix this, and sometimes it helps. But enforcement is inconsistent. Disputes take years, and meanwhile the bills keep coming. This is roulette in its purest form. You're betting your financial future on which providers happen to walk into the room when you're at your most vulnerable. At this point, it would be comforting to believe Jennifer's story is rare. It isn't. According to national data, medical issues are tied to roughly 2/3 of personal bankruptcies in the United States. And here's the detail that should make you stop breathing for a second. Most of those people had health insurance when they got sick. They weren't uninsured. They weren't irresponsible. They paid their premiums. They followed the rules. And they still lost the financial ground they spent decades building. This is what I want you to understand. Jennifer didn't fall through a crack in the system. She landed exactly where the system funnels people like her. The middle class, the planners, the savers, the people with something to lose. This isn't a personal failure story. It's a structural one. And once you see it that way, something shifts. You stop asking, what did she do wrong? And start asking, why does this happen so often to people who did everything right? That question is where real awareness begins. Here's the part most people never say out loud. This system assumes you won't fight back. It assumes you'll be polite, confused, grateful for whatever coverage you get. It assumes that when you're sick, scared, and overwhelmed, you won't have the energy to question a denial letter or audit a bill line by line. And statistically, it's right. Fewer than 1% of denied claims are ever appealed. Not because the denials are correct, but because people are human. Insurance companies know this. They build phone trees that loop, forms that confuse, deadlines that quietly expire. You are not their customer in this moment. You are their cost. Every dollar they don't pay for your care is a dollar that improves their balance sheet. And they don't need to be cruel to make this work. They just need to be patient. This isn't a broken system limping along. It's a highly efficient machine that profits most when you're least able to push back. And understanding that changes how you should think about financial safety. Most financial advice tells you to save 3 to 6 months of expenses. I've said it myself in the past. And for most emergencies, that math works. But medical emergencies break that model completely. Because when the emergency is your health, your expenses don't stay flat. They explode. Premiums keep coming. Deductibles get hit. Coinsurance stacks up. Claims get denied. And suddenly, that carefully built emergency fund isn't a cushion. It's a countdown. If your out-of-pocket maximum is $8,000, you don't need 6 months of expenses. You need 6 months of expenses plus the maximum, plus a buffer for the bills you'll have to fight or pay while you're sick. That's the uncomfortable math nobody puts in a spreadsheet. That's the part that turns prepared into underprepared overnight. This isn't about blaming people for saving too little. It's about recognizing that the risk we're told to plan for is smaller than the risk we actually face. And once you see that gap, you can't unsee it. There's another uncomfortable truth here. The rules that decide whether you keep your money or lose it are written down. They're just written in a way most people never read. Buried inside your insurance policy are appeal timelines, documentation requirements, network exceptions, and carve-outs that can swing a bill by thousands of dollars. When you're healthy, reading that document feels unnecessary. When you're sick, it feels impossible. And the system is counting on both reactions. A denial letter isn't a verdict. It's an opening move. Patients who appeal denied claims win a meaningful percentage of the time. Not because they're lucky, but because many denials collapse under scrutiny. The problem is that appeals require records, dates, names, reference numbers, follow-ups. Bureaucracy beats bureaucracy. And if you don't keep meticulous notes, every explanation of benefits, every bill, every call, you're arguing from memory against a system that documents everything. This isn't paranoia. It's self-defense. The people who keep their footing aren't smarter or richer. They're simply prepared to engage the process instead of surrendering to it. When people talk about net worth, they list assets and liabilities. Cash, retirement accounts, home equity, debt. What they don't list is exposure, the losses that haven't happened yet, but could. And the largest exposure most people carry isn't market risk or job loss. It's their health. Completely invisible, completely uncontrollable, and devastatingly expensive the moment it shows up. That $400,000 in retirement savings, that equity you've been building in your home, that emergency fund you're proud of, none of it is protected. It's all one diagnosis away from becoming a medical expense account. You didn't save that money for your future. You saved it for a system that can legally drain it when you're weakest. Most people never put that line on their balance sheet. And that's why the shock feels so personal when it finally appears. I'm not telling you this to paralyze you. Fear without clarity is useless, but awareness changes how you move. The medical roulette trap works because people believe their premium buys certainty. It doesn't. It buys probability. A chance that your claim gets approved. A chance that the right providers are in network. A chance that your illness stays inside 1 calendar year. Once you understand that, you stop confusing insurance with safety. Real safety comes from margin, from preparation, from knowing you'll have to fight for every claim, question every bill, and appeal every denial. Not because it's fair, because that's the game. The people who survive this system financially aren't lucky. They're informed. They assume friction. They expect resistance. And they build their plans accordingly. Awareness doesn't eliminate the risk, but it keeps the risk from blindsiding you. Jennifer paid her premiums for 20 years. She believed she was buying peace of mind. What she really bought was a seat at a table where the house always wins. The question isn't whether you'll face a health crisis. Actuarially, most of us will. The question is whether you'll still have a financial life on the other side of it. If this changed how you see health insurance, that discomfort is doing its job. It means you're no longer asleep at the table. You don't need to panic. You don't need to give up. But you do need to stop mistaking enrollment for protection. Because in this system, doing everything right doesn't guarantee safety. Seeing the trap before you're inside it does. That's the difference between being a patient and being a victim.